Okay, so imagine that you are enjoying your expensive cappuccino in a cafe and going about your business when this guy enters. He's got the look. I don't know what got me, but I asked him a question that was probably way outside of his usual repertoire. What's the secret to seducing women? And he said, "You're asking the wrong question." He's not overly flashy or trying too hard, but there's something about him that makes you pause. People notice him, but he's not making a scene. He's the guy who blends into the background yet somehow owns the room. Technically, he's retired, but you can still tell he's a spy based on the way he moves and carries himself. I'm like, okay, great start. He explains that you don't seduce women. Instead, you create an environment where they feel safe enough and intrigued enough to seduce themselves. Trust me, that didn't make sense at first either, so I pushed him for more, and he broke it down in this way, which was almost annoyingly simple. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how right he was. The first thing he said was, be present. He claimed that most men aren't even in the same moment as the person they're talking to because they're too preoccupied with their next move, their fears, and their objectives. You can sense that from a mile away. It struck me that when you're in a conversation with someone who isn't really there, they're nodding, smiling, and saying the right words, but you can tell their mind is somewhere else. Women pick that up right away. He advised me to concentrate on listening, not just hearing. Listening is more than just waiting for your turn to speak. It's about taking in what she's saying and reacting curiously, not because you're trying to impress her, but rather because you're genuinely interested. He said, think about how you can add to the moment she's already in confidence is about comfort the spy, before saying something else that stuck with me. Being confident is being at ease in silence, not being the loudest person in the room or constantly making jokes. This one really got to me. We've all been on a date at a party when there's this awkward quiet and all of a sudden you're panicked and making up things to fill the blank. But he clarified that true confidence is accepting those gaps. He told me a story about being undercover and having to sit across from people he couldn't trust, where every word had to be paused. For him, it wasn't awkward. It was powerful with women. It's the same thing. If you're calm and unconcerned by a pause, it shows that you're not desperate to prove yourself. Instead, you're giving her the space to enter the interaction instead of overwhelming her with your energy. This was probably my favorite part of the conversation when he said, "You don't have to be charming, just have to be curious." He said, "Think about it. We're all so wrapped up and wanted to be like that that we forget to actually connect, instead of trying to be this charming." Greater-than-life personality. It's not about questioning her or crossing things off a mental checklist. Rather, it's about genuinely wanting to know. When you approach it that way, it doesn't feel forced. It flows, but, and this is a big one, you have to strike a balance between this curiosity and your own boundaries. You're not just there to cater to her, you're there to share who you are too. The moment you start overdoing it, trying to win her, she'll sense it be unpredictable, not flashy. Now here's where the spy side of him really kicked in. He told me that predictability is the fastest way to lose someone's interest. He wasn't talking about playing games or being manipulative, far from it. What he meant was to avoid being just like every other guy. Most men walk into a conversation with the same lines, the same moves, the same energy. He said, don't be that guy, surprise her. But it wasn't about grand gestures or showing off. He explained that unpredictability comes from being genuinely yourself, because nobody else can be you. The unseen advantage, be unattached. Finally, the thing he emphasized the most was detachment. Attachment is the death of seduction. He said when you approach someone with the energy of "I need this to work," it immediately puts the other person on edge. Instead, Approach as if you're already enough, like you're just seeing where this could go, not clinging to an outcome. This was huge for me. It's easy to get caught up in wanting her number, her validation, or her attention. But when you let go of those needs, something amazing happens. You stop chasing, and people naturally come closer to you. The crazy part at this point, I had to ask him, okay, but what's the craziest thing you've done to connect with someone? He laughed, then said something that completely threw me off. Sometimes the most powerful move is to walk away. He told me about a time he was on a mission where building trust was critical. He made his presence known, showed interest, but then left before anyone could get too comfortable with him. I planted the seed of curiosity, and it grew on its own in dating. It's not about walking away in a manipulative way. It's about knowing when to leave an interaction on a high note. When you end things with her wanting more, she'll remember you, and she'll want to see you again. The conclusion of our conversation. I came to understand that seduction isn't about tricks, lines, or even appearances. Rather, it's about energy and how you make someone feel safe, intrigued, and excited in your presence. The spy advice wasn't revolutionary in the sense that it was some secret formula. Rather, it was straightforward, human, and so evident that we frequently ignore it. So, the next time you're out there, try to connect with someone by being present, curious, and, for heaven's sake, quit trying so hard. Seduction is about creating an environment where it happens organically, not about forcing it.